Why are you in front of a business box? English negative now, one day I got my name's Amy's out. I haven't been there.
What? Oh, she did it. I've been for now. See you guys.
Make sure. So like we don't have to be like the transition. So I think that. I'm hoping it all gets. So I'm.
I had. Is there a table over there?
Also, I wish I wasn't a lot.
Yeah. Well, I was glad to meet you. I thought for you, but I didn't know you. So I thought I'd figure it over. Yeah, my brother's. Oh, sir.
He's your movie for Taylor and I'm your. Yes. I know.
Guys, pay attention. There's a test afterwards.
Not a good testing.
I'm just amazed at how many board members make a monster.
Sorry. You dead? How much time you got on your laptop? 24 minutes. That's a good 6%. Good. Let's go. We got things rolling. Let's get things started. Go ahead and call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Okay, Josh,
Here.
Tyler,
Here.
Doug,
Yep.
Melissa, here's, and Andrew.
Here. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda passes, and we are going to now swear in new board members.
The board? Do you solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa? And will you faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge all the duties of the office of board member in the Gilbert Community School District as now or hereafter required by law? Okay, thank you.
Melissa, welcome.
Thank you.
Officially welcome. All right, now the fun stuff. CMBA crew. What do you have?
Glad you asked.
So you guys all should have the packet that was sent out on Friday. So we refined it a little bit. Today, we're going to talk through what that those options entails, where we're sort of at right now, and then talk through some of those costs at the end. So we will do a little bit of a recap just because Melissa is new here. So where we've been so far, we have 3 sort of phases to our master planning process, which are discover, inspire, and implement. And so we've already done the discover phase, which is generating as much data as we can, taking tours of the buildings, talking to all those teachers, getting as much input as we can, and figuring out where exactly we are. The inspire phase, which is where we're wrapping up right now, July through October, is figuring out where do we go from here? What is the best version of Gilbert School District? And so we've had a couple of different meetings. We're at meeting 4 right now, which is putting it all together and finding the best path forward. And then the implement phase is how do we get there? How do we fund it? How do we generate community support for it? All those questions to turn that vision into a reality. And so this is what we've been showing since the very beginning. And right now we're in that end of the inspire phase, talking about what is the best path forward. I didn't know that animation was going to happen, but I kind of did. So key district goals. This is, we've thrown a lot of spaghetti noodles at the wall just to see what's stuck. What is the best possible situation to put you in? Some spaghetti noodles fell right down to the ground. Some were very bad ideas that absolutely would not work for school district. And your building admin and your teachers let us know. And that's exactly what we're trying for. So by starting out casting a wide net and filtering down to sort of understand what is best working for you, we have a couple of key goals that we're trying to maintain with this master plan. So we have prepared for up to 7 seconds for most grades within the next 20 years. We know you're growing. Some grades are growing at a faster pace. We know like middle school gets a bump every year. So some of the middle school grade levels are a little bit higher than say 4th or 5th grade. High school grade levels are high. Kindergarten grade levels want less students per classroom, and so they may need classrooms. So we took into account some of those type of statistics, but we know that every grade is growing, every grade is going to need space. One of the things that we did during this Inspire phase is talk to the teachers, talk to the principals about what if we were to move this grade out of the building, and what if we were to combine these grades, and is there any way to make that more efficient? And none of that really worked quite as well as what you have right now. Where we sort of ended up is that this is the right grade grouping. We have buildings that are functioning where they're at. They probably just don't have enough space. So we want to maintain those current grade alignments while still maximizing that existing infrastructure. Traffic is an issue within the city. We're trying to address traffic, backlogs during pickup, drop-off times, improving maintenance, operational facilities. So outside of just attendance centers, we have a district office that doesn't have a boardroom. We have a bus barn that can't fit a full school bus. So what can we do about some of those things? And then the last two are improved learning environments is what it's really all about, making sure that we're not just building to build rooms, we're building to put those students in the best position to succeed, and increase gym athletic spaces. That was continuously addressed, and we heard more of it tonight. There's always a waiting line to see who gets what gym, how do we shift those around. So what can we do to alleviate some of that burden?
Okay, before you go too far, are you sharing through the Zoom or just on your screen?
I'll share through this.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's not going,
It's
not going through the Zoom.
not.
Mhm.
Your computer's displaying those, you can share your.
I thought I was, sorry. Let me, I think I'm just.
Thanks, Andrew.
There we go.
My bad, sorry guys. That would have been really embarrassing if you let me go like.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
Okay, so you saw the picture of what you're at, where you're at right now, and this is looking at those 4 sites, what's going on in your existing property, how those can change to fit some of those large key district goals. And so one of the first things that you're going to notice, the biggest moves are these 2 facilities on the north. So the first move is how we ended our last board session. We talked about that track that's at the existing intermediate school and the maintenance required to just refinish that track because it's been resurfaced before and because there's some site grading issues, and it may not be worth investing in it in its current spot. It may be the same amount of money to resurface it in its existing spot as it is to move it to the middle school who uses it primarily. Middle school would use it more than anybody. So what if we move that track to the middle school and we open up that entire north end of the elementary school? And so that's what you're seeing. The pink is all new addition. So at the intermediate school, you see a large addition, it's a new parking, and you see the oldest construction within the district, your original gym that was built in the 1960s, and then some of those classrooms that surround it. Those are cut off so that there is a new circulation route going right through it. So now you can access that the existing admin office is now more of a front entry. It's not necessarily right in the middle of a courtyard. Showing that building off and then creating separate circulation routes for visitors, workers, the school buses, trying to keep those students better routes of traffic. That's really what this plan is trying to do a lot of, is get traffic diverted away from those 2 main arterial roads. So by the blue in this chart is vehicle traffic, and you can see you can get from the elementary school to the primary elementary school to the middle school without ever once going on those 2 roads that we had to round about. And by putting all the bus circulation behind the existing intermediate school, now those are crossing traffic. And so this is one thing that we're trying to do to really address that traffic concern and get less people away from those two large roads with the roundabout where there is the most backlog. As far as what actually goes in to each building has a variety of different needs. And so we'll start at our youngest and we'll work our way up to the oldest students in the high school. But this is about 30,000 square feet of new construction at the existing primary school. It would account for one new gymnasium. A lot of teachers stress that they would like a new space for like indoor recess. That was one thing that came up on our surveys, and so we tried to give them a new flexible space. And we know gym spaces that a lot of people need gym space within the district. So what can we do to address that need? You have one section of 7 classrooms, and then the rest of the classrooms are sort of shifted around. So you have one section of new classrooms. On the southern portion, we were trying to create a neighborhood around those existing 7 classrooms, and then along the current media center would be another section of classrooms with pre-K up in the northwest corner. And so how do we get those students divided in the existing space while also moving at least one grade out to that new construction? And the orange in this plan would be shared spaces. That's like music rooms, art rooms, like a maker lab. We're trying to get all of those classrooms, regardless of what grade you're in, radiating around those shared spaces. And so that's what we're trying to accomplish at the primary school.
One question.
Yeah, go ahead.
On this, just to make sure, whether we do it or not, I just want to make sure that it's something we're thinking about is the childcare, the place for YSS. Because when we're losing, I don't know how much the portables get used other than YSS, or if it's just that one, but we're losing the current YSS portable in that. And again, we can reevaluate as we get closer how much priority that would be, but is there room in here for childcare either during the day or, for after hours care? Because again, that's something I want to make sure we're at least thinking about, that we can at least consider as a board at some point. If we want to make a bigger jump and say, hey, we're going to have some type of childcare offering during the day. So I don't know how that works,
I think that's a whole other conversation, and I guess when all the research, from what I understand, that came up a little bit, but it wasn't necessarily a priority here, what their background is, so I guess. To me, that's a whole nother topic.
Are we looking at 3rd grade half days? Or 3-year-old half days?
We haven't at this point.
Okay, thank you.
So that was gonna be my question. So when you say 7 sections of K-12, K2, or what's all factored in for preschool?
So it's 7 sections of full day, and then the half days have 3 sections. So that would be 4 and 6.
And any comments on the existing gym? Would that be repurposed or used?
So we have that outlined. We did talk about that when we had our building leadership meeting, because this lunchroom, the kitchen and lunchroom, if we are growing, they're probably not the size.
That was my question around the lunchroom, what does that look like? I see that top area up there.
So one thing that was thrown out, whether it's the best idea or whether we need a brand new space, we could use that gymnasium as more of like a flex space, multi-purpose, and the new gym as your main gymnasium. Okay.
that was.
Well, we're just starting that, we're not looking at that.
Because I remember the discussion about the capacity on lunches right now and how close we're getting to bursting.
I mean, the alternative would be to try to expand that cafeteria up to the more.
That sounds like a really expensive way, when we've got maybe some room. Sounds like there's probably in the existing equipment right there.
And this is new playgrounds too, well, this is the softscape, that's all new playground, is that how I read that?
So it's the existing location. We know that there's some accessibility concerns, so I don't know if it's totally start from scratch, but definitely add some of those concerns there.
Stacy, what's your initial thoughts, and then just your building?
Yeah, I think my biggest question, we talked about this last time, is what, if you're the original building, has right now kind of softball, so if you're in the kindergarten room, there's one kindergarten on one side of the softball on the other. And so we're talking about taking two of those and making them one kind of nice size kindergarten space, or if we still are talking about building permanent walls, so there's still be that number of classrooms, so I think that. I mean, if they were one big classroom right now, they don't, we have the number of spaces needed, but I think it doesn't necessarily accommodate for a lot of growth, so I think that was one, question that we talked about when we got the board, but I think that's just up for discussion. Ultimately, I think we also talked about the idea of the gym possibly being fitted out enough to actually have a competition there, with at least some bleachers or possible and things like that, so. Yeah, I agree.
So when you look at this, how long is this model gonna work right here in your work today?
Yeah, I mean, for us, the thing is, our work has been pretty stable over time at the elementary, so I feel like it would last for a while. Now, you know, he did add, that's actually preschool this year and built that rather quickly, and we haven't done that before. In fact, last year we didn't build our section even, so I feel like that. I feel like next year kindergarten will be a telltale for us to see what our growth will look like.
And that's what I would challenge you guys tonight, to look at this and say, okay, works today, how long is it gonna work? Because, you know, next year I'm going off the board, maybe Tyler too, and he's gonna stay. And these two are gonna take it up with you. We have to leave a growth pattern, so it grows out after, just like they did when they built the middle school, we could jet off and things like that. So when you look at this, I would challenge everybody to say, what's this look like in 10 years? Because if we go off that way, how do we go off again? You know, maybe this is the best option today, or maybe it's the best option today, but it's not long term. So I would challenge you guys to look at it and say, where do we go after this? Because we're not going to grow. So.
And also, Jeff, if I may, is that Courtney, you had mentioned this the last time we met about, because we are doing that enrollment study and we're waiting for that. You all came up with a number of, I think it was the 7 classrooms, and looking at that as throughout the building. So it's kind of knowing that that's coming, but that felt like that gave us enough space. But we also have that other piece of data that we're waiting on to see how it matches up. And it'll be important to pull that all together as we move forward.
Is there traffic flow here? Like, are we assuming changes just the way that that's, again, with the parking lot, and you keeping it the same?
So it's
Just
expanded,
dropping off at a different spot in the loop? Or-
it's expanded more towards the south.
Okay.
But the circulation patterns as far as trying to keep teachers and visitors to the west and buses up in the northeast, that's the same.
Does it cut into all the baseball fields at all, just to the south?
I think that must be that little.
One little field, yeah, there's still 4 fields there.
That would be just that, what's called a hardscape playground.
Yeah. And that would be because of the current basketball courts and portables are what we're taking over, so trying to replace those to the south. And not to say that those couldn't be moved and you could keep them all, I'm sure you could probably be strategic about that.
Any other questions on that? We'll move along to the next building.
So renovated neighborhoods, could you just expand that?
So neighborhoods is what we're calling a grade, and so it's not necessarily just classrooms, we're saying that would be classrooms, small group spaces, areas for hands-on, if there's a teacher workroom. We're saying that a neighborhood is all encompassing.
Looks like one of those areas is the library. Is that right?
Yeah, and so that's trying, whatever grade would be there is, trying to give them some more like spill out space if they were. Need to take a test or need to work in small groups or something. They could go out in the classroom rather than trying to sit in the hallway or.
So there's some structural changes to the core of that building as well. Okay.
I wrote down 30,000 square feet. That's a lot. But the numbers are right in my head.
Stop doing the math.
9.
Wow. That's just the addition, that's not.
All right.
It'll feel like 40.
Quick math.
Okay, so this is the intermediate site. And this is where most of the site work is happening, and so it's demolishing about half of the existing oldest construction. Keeping at least one grade located in those bottom 7 classrooms, and then adding 2 grades up north. And so how that would work is that existing, what started as a shop is now receiving, that would be like a locker bay or something that those 2 grades could share, and then they would diverge in that sort of L shape, E shape to fit 2 sections. And then additionally on the site would be the new district office, which was just displayed, and then trying to create like a maintenance hub, which could fit a treated space so that you could actually work on buses inside. And then also like a more of a covered bus floor, which would be unconditioned, but at least you're out the elements. And then trying to keep all those buses to west of the school so that all your visitor circulation goes in that curved eastern portion. And this is another one where a new gym is also part of that scope.
Where's the gym? Is that?
That's the green right next to you.
I bet you guys did a nice job with the Jones.
So it's pretty close to the other gym too, I mean.
Yeah.
yes, we got that.
So hopefully they can share locker rooms. Trying to maximize that.
And how many more additional classrooms are we adding under this?
So this one is 14 what we call classrooms, and then 1 special ed resource room and 2 specials, which would be music art, and as well as whatever the existing district office and where the admin are located, those could be repurposed in, which is that lighter orange shade.
That's all skate playground again, I assume that road, I'm just trying to think, is crossing over with kids.
So that's sort of about, I mean, similar to the last question, there's all the room in the world on the northern part, but those southern classrooms, that's all the way across the site. So we could maybe try to shift the road to
You're not putting
a pocket or something, if you don't want to cross the road.
Yeah,
But that's an attempt to try and get those bottom grades access to at least a little bit of outdoor space.
yeah.
There's not a lower level. There's no lower level. We can't do a scheduled tunnel or anything.
Technically below the existing stage, it's only lower level.
How many classes would be taken out from the demolition?
I would have to do the math on it, I believe probably 12 classrooms. But I don't know whether they're dedicated, I think some of those are resourced, it would be an existing maker spaces in there.
FCS band.
Very large band room. Yeah.
Very large.
Yeah.
So what would be the
But this
net?
band room would be accessible.
What would be the net when you demolish and add? What's the net?
That's a good question.
I think it's
The net change from demo to new addition.
Of square footage,
Classroom.
we'll have to get a total classroom.
I'm not totally sure what the existing demo is. I think this one is around 40,000 square feet, so a little bit than the last one, and it's demolishing 40,000 too, so square footage. It's about the same, but I'm not sure. Room to room,
Is the district office a new build or
that is a new build.
Amy, would you have a guess of how many would be demolished if we hacked it off there?
That would. 11 classrooms. Are coming out of that.
11 would be demolished and 14 added, so we'd be up.
And then also music band. Theater space.
Right.
And our Wi-Fi room.
No, I'm super excited about this and I like thinking of some blocks where we all call it, we're all like, oh my gosh, this is really a great idea. We currently split our playground with the road and it is far less than ideal. So if we're redoing this right now, we need to make it a priority that we're not crossing the road for playground. So whether that, what we have slated for Southgate playground becomes part of that parking, rather than that, are there. Love all that playground in one spot.
Is that too far for your needs in the south end, to go to the north end?
Through the school to get to the playground and come across.
Okay, because we would rather having all the playgrounds together, but sometimes people are concerned about the travel distance, even though they're still getting exercise going to it.
Yeah, no,
You're okay if all goes
We'll
north? Okay,
figure that out.
Okay.
I would rather all be on together supervision.
perfect.
It's better that way, and for kids, crossing, it's better that way.
So just to understand that you're talking about the road that currently runs between the building and the football field. You're calling that a road.
Correct.
Okay.
And I need to be more active in that current road.
A lot more.
Right. I love the idea with the two gyms of now having just like a gym access. In the one plan we looked at, there's a door that we're district office really did on that west side. That divides between the two gyms, it would be nice to close off the rest of the school. When there's a long period of activity, so I think that's really great. A couple of things I just have more questions about, but I think as we like, get closer, those will come up, but, the both traffic flows, and just wondering, like, I love the pass-through road, but I'm also just wondering how would parent pickup flow through that, because it seems like it's more of just a road instead of like a circle loop. And the same on the west side. And again, this is like little bit, right, but kind of shifting what the parking lot is in a little bit, because it's more of a.
Yeah, so you go straight, yeah.
Yes.
How far is the corridor from the circle? The roundabout, do we have any idea on that? Are we back far enough for the city to go, okay, this?
I can give you a rough estimate.
No, I mean, there's gotta be parameters that you can't have an entrance into a road too close to a major intersection.
Those are things that we definitely want civil engineer to look at, but what we're showing is lining up with the existing roadways, so the curb cuts would be the same distance as existing, and hopefully that would be sufficient, but I think it's a good question.
Oh, I
So going to the south,
So you
it would connect all that south all the way straight through.
So I like that we're trying to factor in traffic, right?
Yeah.
Because that came up quite a bit in some of the initial meetings. When we've asked the city, what their options would be for helping with traffic. Their comment was a road, it would be an east-west road that would basically come across from First Street or Second Street. Second Street.
Up at the vet clinic.
Yes, north of the vet clinic and run across, which. Is there any consideration for bringing a road in, which would be basically across the north side of that property, and then not just dumping cars out right there at school and Matthews, but instead coming up across north of all of that and then coming in basically north of the elementary school?
I think that would further getting the cars off of that roundabout road.
What's that?
I think that would be further the idea of getting cars off that roundabout road, you can pass straight through and exit north.
You're talking about First Street, Tyler?
Josh.
Is there a road in that town?
Yeah. It's like that.
First Street
Stops at the
stop.
vet clinic, right?
Yeah.
But
It's south of that clinic.
Hmm,
The one north of that clinic is Second Street, and that's quite a
The
bit
one that just
further.
stops right to the west of the transportation hub.
that one.
That's Second
That's
Street.
Second. The city, now the city said there's considerable grading and, there's water flow there, so I'm not saying that that's just plop down some asphalt. But if the city is looking at that as potential traffic flow around the north side of the city, I just asking if we've taken that into consideration. Again, I think it's good when we try to address traffic if we're doing something at the intermediate school. But if we looked at that option at all.
We haven't, it's quite a bit of a longer jaunt. I mean, we can look into it.
It might be worth at least taking a look, and then you don't carve up the property and you've got actually more, I think, to work with as far as playground and space and. But I don't mean to take you all the way back to the start. I like what we've got laid out.
Was there any thoughts, on moving the bus barn?
Early on.
Briefly,
And what would stop that process from continuing?
well, we'd have to identify where that goes for one. Secondly, the main concerns we heard about this bus barn is that it wasn't large enough to get a bus in there to do maintenance.
Right.
So we thought from an economical standpoint, we could leave it where it's at, expand a little bit to the north with some additional storage and add a maintenance bay on. So,
While still using it for the rest of the maintenance needs, and trucks and motors and.
I would challenge you that's a short-term solution for a bus. You know, we have, how many acres over here? 13 acres or 16 acres, whatever we have on the south side of the high school. And if you look at moving traffic, the first thing I would do is I move a component of all the traffic, which would be the bus. Now the bus will still have to come there and pick the kids that might get that. But, you know, we're gonna band-aid the facility. We're talking about, you know, what Tyler's saying, right, we gotta get some traffic right there. You know, the city's not gonna pay for the road, we're not gonna pay for the road. So, I mean, we've got to look at moving, in my mind, we got to look at moving a hub of transportation away from it. You know, we need a new bus barn, we need new tanks for fuel, the whole thing. I think it's just gives us an opportunity to look somewhere else and move this once instead of, you know, and then, you know, then to Amy's deal, you could move some of the playground to it. You know, and then you don't have that road through there. I never knew that road was a problem. I would have, for my wildest dreams, I couldn't have, I would have flown on that. But, you know, if that's a problem, we gotta fix it. So, you know, it's just an idea.
Yeah, I mean, it could come out, what's the new east-west road? I mean, you could come out straight from there.
Yeah.
On the south, you're taking on the south end of town.
Yeah.
Andrew, can you zoom into that and show us a little bit?
You know, and like, Jeff was mentioning, I think we're mentioning down here, right, Jeff? And so,
Yeah.
in my mind too, another option to here, that's not.
So you could consider it.
Look, they're especially here. This section. Maybe it's not nice. I'm just throwing it out.
Be negotiating with Tim Day at this point.
I know. I know. But I mean, I'm just, the bus barn, I agree, I don't know what the right solution is.
Is there a way to incorporate it into the CTE labs on the north side? You're buying a lot of the same equipment.
And I guess the other thing I would say about that building is a couple of things. You know, the building is expensive. You know, tearing them down, you've got to know what you're in for. So what is our cost? Even if we abandon the track situation, is there a need for another football field? Because we talk about how many gyms we don't have. Well, is that scenario the same in football fields? I mean, we have some great soccer teams, you know, they can't all practice on the same field, you know. So I would challenge it. We don't need a football field. I'll be the first one to say I think that's fine. But I don't know the answer to that, and I'm not sure you guys do either. And then, I'm not sure that in our budget today, it's for that, not part of building down and rebuild one again and run a lane through there. I didn't see that one coming. And I think there's some equity to have on this. But I'm not sure that's it.
So if you go back to the intermediate, Andrew, there's the additional classrooms, and can you just again go over what else there is, because we'd be taking out band and choir. Is that?
So that's these orange classrooms. Or special classrooms, band or choir,
Okay.
makerspace. For those 3 neighborhoods to share.
As long as they're big enough.
That's, yeah.
Because they show pretty similar to us right here, right? And that's narrowing in. I know this is very high level.
They're all compared. I mean, you're still getting what you need out of those rooms. They're just centralized to the building, accessible, yes.
One thing I didn't ask, when we met, are the new classrooms, same square footage as what we're carried out?
We modeled this off of your newer, I think on the southwest corner, we've got called out in that motor, so that like the newly renovated stuff is in those. Okay, we can shrink those down. We can.
That's great, because I think one of the advantages of the intermediate school is it builds in cost corners. So I know classrooms were very large. And I don't want to.
The portion that's being torn down, is that the oldest portion? I'm
Yeah.
assuming, so that's the portion that's not sprinkled, anything like that. I'm thinking too, are we working in? We're touching enough of the building that we're gonna have to bring that up to code. Are there areas that aren't sprinkled that we're gonna have to put in? Because we're looking at, I mean, potentially 7 figures to renovate a fire suppression system.
That, I don't know. We really need to get our hands on the existing drawings of this thing.
Because it looks like that portion's being torn out. I like the idea of the district offices being separate.
And, in our theory for the district offices, that could be like a wood frame slab on grade structure, it doesn't have to be the same.
It can be pretty basic.
Yes.
Have heat in it or not?
Yes.
We're
A
seeing
lot of outlets.
Burning stove. We're thinking like.
Yeah.
And then I would ask. How long is this good? I mean, is this good for today? Is this good for a year? Is it good for 2 years? Because you're boxing us in. I mean,
Mhm.
what you're doing here is there's no more future growth. So,
Well, I think with this plan though, you can go north because you do have all of that playground space.
okay,
Yeah, if we don't have the bus barn there,
Yeah,
there's a lot of room to.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
the best part gives you options.
You could potentially put a playground over on that side and not have. If we're not doing the bus barn there, now you've got playground, you can change with the parking lot doesn't need to be where it is now. Maybe that's a playground that you don't have to walk across the street to get to. I like the idea of a big bus barn somewhere totally different.
Well, I think one of the hard things that we need to think about too is the order of phasing for this too. Because maybe that bus barn is not a long-term solution, but maybe it's a 10-year solution and that's what we can afford now because we've got more primary needs elsewhere. And maybe a transportation hub elsewhere is ultimately the goal, but obviously there's a limited amount of funds for all of these.
In about 10 slides, you're gonna say, what bus bar? Buses are fine.
Okay, hope you guys just keep talking about all this, and once we got to the cost, time is up.
Yeah.
All right.
Were there any more questions about that intermediate site? We can keep going to the middle school. So the biggest change at the middle school, which is not shown on this slide, but we talked about earlier, is moving that field to the north side. There's a little bit of new parking for that, so that some accessible spots, and you can cross right over that little ravine into that area. You are going to be watching the football game. As far as the actual circulation, nothing really changes. But within the school, we're looking at an addition to the northeast side, where the current commons is and where those band rooms are. One of the biggest concerns that we heard in this space is how undersized the band rooms are. And so that's sort of where this started, but I know we had some discussion, where can you build? We can go south, you can go maybe to the southeast corner. If band is our biggest issue, we started right in the north and we said, we're gonna give adequately sized band room, adequately sized choir room. And then we heard also, maybe not a super loud concern, but at one point we talked that the commons, if we keep growing, it's not gonna be big enough. And so with this, it's a commons edition, and it would be 3 of those special classrooms, band, choir, art, technology. Not necessarily sure what the third one could be. We have the existing band and choir rooms, which could then be repurposed. And we know that we're lacking space for some of those core subjects. And so we examined what are some of those elective courses. We have like art, we have Tiger Time. Are there any of those classrooms that are part of those core classrooms that could be transitioned over to an English classroom or a social studies classroom? And so can we move any of these spaces up north and make this an elective wing and have a core wing on the southern portion? And so that's what we're looking at. In addition, one thing that I don't want to look over is a new security entry. So that is up on the front, just attaching to that vestibule so that you have to enter through an admin space in order to get access to the rest of the school. And so that's the other thing I was taking into account for this one.
What was the total square footage of new on this?
1,000 here, 9,000 here, equals 10,000. New construction.
We have totals at the end too.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
You have your own map.
I thought the last slide was total square footage, but I haven't.
How much do we, I mean, some of our best land, in my mind, is where the old baseball and softball fields are. I mean, we've got brand new facilities. How much are we actually using those?
The previous high school ones?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
you absolutely need those.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah,
we've now compromised the 90-foot at the elementary, which needed to be done
Yeah.
a long time ago. So that's really middle school and overflow for high school.
okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's Ian here.
No,
He's
no.
answered for it. But no, that's been in the plan for a long time,
Yeah.
to get those.
Out there, so we don't.
It's safe.
All right. Yeah, I don't know, I got that.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning the football field too. We can't, we can't lose a football field. And I'm speaking from a community perspective, they're jam packed. So. I've had a lot of people saying, when are we gonna get the artificial turf practice field, which we're not gonna get, obviously, but that's the direction that people are pushing, but we're not. To lose a football field would be a big deal.
But Andrew, you're saying this would be, it's just not reflected. So the track football field that's at the intermediate would be over to the middle school.
Yep.
Correct, where it's utilized, where kids, because right now, if you recall, we talked about kids having to walk over from the middle school over here. It's just not a great situation. So this would be much better.
Because how much do we use the track at the intermediate now with the issues that it has? We're never competing on it, right?
No. It's utilized, but it's, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's no super track.
Yes,
But you can't do anything sanctioned on it, right?
No, yeah, we can only practice in, I think, 5 of the lanes. I think the 3 of the lanes you can't use, we can't run a slice on it, because they'll come up with safety hazard. After any of the custodians have to go running down the cracks, so we can run on it, so it becomes hazard, but we don't have another option.
This should have grinder. Do we have a system out here for heating and cooling?
Not there. I think it's just north of the facility, my understanding. So not way out where that.
Okay.
Fuel's at.
Mike, what's your thoughts on your school?
So, one of the things that I stressed is this building was set up in pots, for better or for worse, 4 grades, 3 grades, which is okay. But so when I moved to 6 sections, I've only got 4 classrooms in a pod, which will be 5 sections was fine, as long as in the gym. Well, when I was 6, and now I got a grade level I got a classroom that's not with the rest of the grade. And so what I asked was on the main there that comes off on the left there. Could we add on some classes there in the 6th grade to be all together rather than 5 sections and 1 section off on the part of the building, which is what happened here. So I'm not crazy about that. I think when you talk about community, it's hard to have community when you have 1 teacher and 1 classroom off on it. So this is kind of set up if I was organized by departments, right? So and I'm organized by grade level. And so I'm less enthused about that. So I think if you could add on those where the buses are there, it's designed originally, supposedly have room for that. And so that's what I would think to add on, so I can have 6th grade all together, and then the addition we did last time, I said the 8th grade could be all together in sections. And so I could set up a big from that standpoint. Up where they added on the comments, I really think if I talk to Christine about this, if we're tearing down East Gym and we're adding a gym, I would propose, and I'm not going to make that contact between the next two macros, but let's add it on the middle school because it's largely when both gyms are used. It's a middle school meeting for the programs, so let's put it at the middle school. And maybe that's something you can build out where the expanded commons is and the local rooms, and then my current band room would be big enough for choir. I could just move part of there, and so to me, have that on band room to the north of the building. You may have to reroute that road, but I'm not super great about that road anyways. So go over the existing bridge that they have going to the football field, go along the waterway, and just building on the bridge coming down on the backside of the building, so you could build out possibly a band room to the north. And so I would do a band room to the north, use the current choir room as a practice room, and then the current band room as a choir room. So I think there's some ways that could potentially we wouldn't have to add on the local use for this, what I'm saying.
So coming out here, I like to get put in the bus park. How many rooms do you want now?
Well, it's supposedly it's set up for 2. I mean, I think you could add 1, but that wouldn't build for 10 rows. To me, this will add 2 if you're doing construction.
So you would add just 2 rooms down that.
I think that's probably all the room is for between before you run into that sidewalk, but. Originally, that's the way the building was planned, so each wing could add on, right? You add on to the south, but to that wing to the west.
It's a bit of a challenge, right, Mike, and I get the pods, but go from 5 sections to 6 sections, and 6 sections to 7 sections, and the pods, I mean, it's just an incremental one is a bit of a challenge, right? I mean, is there any flex in there that creates shared space or something that, because otherwise, if we did what you just described for 6, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever, okay, now it doesn't work because we need 7, right? But any thoughts there?
Yeah, I know I have a good solution for that. I mean, we talked about organizing as departments and sort of putting science, whatever it's together in that kind of configuration. And honestly, I still have a lot of, and it's no different than any other building. I saw a lot of parents are apprehensive about 6th grader being mixed in with 8th grader. We hear that all the time when we bring the 5th grade over for a transition. As parents are nervous about the big guy 8th graders. Again, no different than any other building. But I think the perception is different when we talk about the 6th graders or the 8th graders. And so mixed up was something that really nobody felt like was a super great idea. I don't like now. I wish it wasn't that way. It's not set up for 3 grades very well, but it is what it is.
What was it built?
I think 5-8 building originally, 6-7-8, we got rid of that within 6 years.
Is the 6th probably the most important one to try to keep as a pod then?
Probably.
If 7th and 8th was more mixed or?
Probably, yeah. Yeah. And when you get to 7 or 8 down the road or whatever, then you can, maybe look at splitting up a 4 and 3 or something. From a master schedule standpoint, once you start getting into that, you have some. So I mean, the 6 off 200 drugs, which when you get to 7 and 8, then I have multiple teachers, and so you almost have like a 4 class part and then a 3 class part, right? So then there's an online grading over by itself. But for 6, it's just not set up for well. One's going to be off on its own. And I can make it, it's just as we talk about community and return to neighborhoods, like it just would be
Well, I think that's good input. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
I think we're still at that stage,
Yeah.
right? So we're not making any decisions tonight, but it's good to continue.
I mean, you work it every day, we don't know what we're gonna do.
The other thing I'll say, I'm just gonna add to Mike's comment about, I thought it was an interesting thought after, when he shared that with me about the gym, because, again, sorry. Because the events that take place at the intermediate are often the middle school events. So the kids are coming over, the families are coming over, so that makes sense to me after we talked to Mike about that and thought about it a little bit, so that's interesting, just another thing to consider, because it is our middle school kids that are utilizing it, so why not?
With, you know. With my numbers, generally I have those teams here that, you know, A, B, C, and B teams, because 7th grade is where everybody moved out. So a lot of times we utilize both gyms to have an A, B game going and a C game going. Sometimes we have to come over back, so there is the important time, and so I think we're gonna add a gym or rebuild the gym. Me, it would make sense. But it doesn't also, there was space work, and to me, the way is where you expand the commons, and the commons is put out there. It wouldn't have to be as big as the current middle school gym, but we'd have to have that seating capacity.
Right.
You know, we wouldn't have to have the locker room facilities, maybe just a changing room. But I think to me that would make sense if we're gonna rebuild the gym.
It seems like at the intermediate, under that plan, if you didn't put a gym in that spot, it'd be pretty easy to add one 10 years down the road. If we, you know, if we got to that, you know, if we didn't do it at the intermediate, and then we absolutely decided, oh, we absolutely need one over there, it doesn't look like it would be much to add it back later. Just build it, expecting that we might need to someday. Unless you really want the gym there. That's what.
Last one is high school, we just had that little tour, and so we're trying to address some of those issues that we were just hearing about. So we'll start with the east, I think that portion, what we have shown here is a new gym. We have that red space would be a back entrance, sort of, new bathrooms for the band and choir, because they're all the way across the school from the existing bathrooms. Purple would be, new locker rooms or team rooms, trying to address that issue of that all the sports that are finding a lot of space, trying to do that more. And then the orange is what we're calling a fitness room, and so we heard during that tour that the weight room is a very desirable space. This is trying to be the economy of scales. We don't necessarily want to build in 4 small locations across the school. We're trying to build one big project to be as economical as possible. So he mentioned that we could expand out, like towards the south of the weight room. We thought maybe, what if we had just another fitness room for more like the aerobics or like treadmills or bicycles, or trying to split that space up. So now we're able to have 2 different classrooms in those fitness activities rather than just the one weight room that everybody's fighting for.
All ceilings.
Do you use them for classes?
Oh, the weight room?
Yeah.
Oh, every single period.
Okay.
There's probably 35 kids in each one of those class periods. Okay. It's maxed out. That's a good thing. As a former PE teacher, that's a unique to have a full weight room and then every period.
I was really surprised at the locker room situation on a tour. I mean, something needs to be done.
Does that address the issue? I mean, would it work to have a new space outside of the weight room? What do you think of that as opposed to making it bigger?
As long as there's connectivity to the current weight room, I mean, is that are you talking about?
Right across the hall.
Right across the hall, yeah.
One of the things we talked about while we were walking through there is that you could expand to the south theoretically, but you also have a student to teacher ratio that you're going to continue to push. So if you just had another space, maybe that's a better solution.
Moving to the left in this plan, another big thing we heard were science rooms. And so there are a couple different ways to do this casting, so not exactly sure, we showed a couple different things. Right away, you see, we can just renovate those rooms, we can try to divide them up to get more spaces. We can obviously just go in and trench gas or get vents in there if need be. So we can, without adding any major additions, that far left part, without doing any of that, we could just fix the signs up to their current level. We know that the plan of this high school was always to stand out towards the west. And so if you do choose now is the time to begin that, you could address the science rooms within that part and then use those big science classrooms, that oversized classrooms, as Dr. Trigo mentioned, that they're so well sized. You can find other uses for those and then address all the science needs if you want to begin that westward expansion.
What's the space on that? If you did the 6 new classrooms, how much space?
I think that is 8,000 square feet.
And what about over on the east side and the athletic side?
That one is 16,000 square feet. But I say that one as unconfidently as I told you any number.
I was gonna say, that one seems a little light. Maybe that.
But that includes the gym or?
So the gym, we're saying is 10,000 square feet. And then the rest of them, I'll say 8,000.
What kind of gym are you expecting?
So that's an auxiliary gym. It wouldn't necessarily have all the bleachers. It would probably be 2 lateral courts and 1 main court.
I guess my thought on that whole deal is we're short gym space. Why not build it there? Why not put another 20 feet on there? And build it out. We're already in the game.
You mean
What was that, Jeff?
I just think we're building a gym. How much would it cost to just make it a gym, make it a,
Like to have some features.
yeah, at least one side. You know, not saying either, just one side of the bleachers and then the courts. But we're into it for this and we can beat this and the bleachers on one side for how much more money it is.
I could see regretting not doing that once it's done.
I think any guy would say it would be the next day.
And
Right.
any gym space we should have,
Right.
in my opinion.
Ideally, I would say too, you mentioned the training. If money weren't an object, it is obviously to somehow connect right off that in the gym. The training room that walks right into the gym. If that makes sense.
What do you mean by training?
We have a little teeny training room, in the hallway on the way down to the locker rooms. That's probably 350 square feet.
It's a big train.
I mean, for a train.
Yes, you know, it's a great, we trainers on the daily, and we've got kids that have to ride the hallways. They're just lining in the hallways, so that would be the major issue in my mind.
John, what else? Any other comments?
Well, and being part of the whole building process at Valor, we built a brand new school, I was part of that. And the very first thing that we wanted to make sure we had were state-of-the-art science classrooms. And so once again, if money went on an object, I would say refurbish those current science classrooms to something else. And build a brand new ones, if that's possible. Highly unlikely possibly, but that would be, that way you've got 4 classrooms that you can grow into. And then you've got 4 beautiful brand new science labs, you know, and those are cheap. That's it.
That athletic area there, is that enough? Does that meet the
That
needs?
would be the amen right there.
Problem.
Well, it depends on what happens with that middle school.
Be a neighbor.
I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 gyms, which is really superior to most districts are.
Right.
So then you're looking at a good 10 years down the road, I would confidently say.
Okay.
So in the purple vein locker rooms, is that 2 locker rooms or is that in that area, there's different stuff going on, that's.
2 locker rooms, but, training room would be one, and you can move it and, there are a lot of different things that we try to put in there in the kitchen.
Yeah, that needs to be. No more training closet, we need a training room. You can take the sign that says training room and put it on the actual training room and we build one someday.
All right, you ready for the cost slide?
Just one question.
Oh.
Go ahead, parking for high school, any comments there? Are we good at this point, or I know activities? It's all over in the grass, but during the day. We have adequate parking.
Yeah.
Right now,
It's activities that,
How much room do we have? I mean, how much room do we have during the day right now?
if we were to go ahead and tell students you can also park in the back staff lot,
Okay,
there's probably 60 spots open back there. But the kids are told, and so we had to overflow.
Is your front full?
Yeah.
There's some spots on the, sort of on the left-hand side. This lot is completely full, right, is what I'm saying, I don't know, John, and then this lot has some further, way they are. There's some little spots in the back over there.
And I mean, you could even, up at the baseball field, there's a grassy knoll area that you could just dump some gravel. And at the time you can park 50 cars there.
okay,
I know how expensive parking lots are. And, any of us that have been to Iowa State, you can park everywhere you want. Same thing here, right? Park down the street and walk. Sorry, but. In my opinion, putting money in the classrooms and other facilities that are going to use all day long is a no-brainer.
Have they ever looked at putting, even like the way the schools are set up now, like the new Iowa State walkway, right? Like a little mini one going between our schools, just to make them all more walkable. You guys like capturing my vision a little bit? I'm just thinking like, tonight I have a 5th grader that had to go from this school to this school. And I had someone come pick them up because I didn't want them walking across any of our roads that night. You know what I mean? Just wondering if that could be built somewhere in the vision at some point, if it was worth the money to keep kids safe and make our schools feel more connected for maybe even parking, right? You could park at the school and walk over, or I don't know, maybe it's
is that primarily between intermediate and middle school?
yeah, but also like, I don't know, how often do 8th graders walk to the high school like after? Maybe that's not a common walkway, but just thinking.
Yeah.
Oh.
So this is trying to encapsulate everything we talked about, split into different chunks. And you can see the total cost of everything that we talked about. Which is, if you add it all up, we're saying it's between 48 and $50 million worth of changes is everything that we talked about today. Which, your bonding capacity, what you're capable of right now is around that 33 to 34. So the next conversation, they're filtering wants versus needs. First priority versus secondary versus tertiary. By trying to filter this plan down to say, we need this right now versus we can put this off until we have additional funds available.
That's a lot in an hour. Just gonna throw that out there too.
That's a lot of
A lot of information in an hour.
How fast are we recouping our bonding capacity?
Well, we'll know more January, the evaluation come out January 1, and they'll, could be as early as the 2nd week in January. Once that comes out, that will show, I'm assuming, growth. I'm not sure how much growth to expect, but we anticipate anywhere from 4 to 5% is what we anticipate. So not sure what it's looking like, what we anticipate, but that's what we plan on doing.
So phasing projects in, you know, we just drop the clutch at, let's say we got 35, you know, thinking we got every penny out of that. How much time before, you know, as we start paying off other debt, are we able to roll that into new stuff? What's the next
We would,
debt that's coming up after that?
based on what was shared in July. The bottom side here is 47, is that right? 47 and a half, and the top side's 50. To your question, Josh, in 2027 is when we would get to a $47 million bonding capacity. So we're a few years out from when we can do all of that, based on these estimates. Right? To Gail's point, well, growth and evaluation, well, we expect that to come, but where are rates gonna be as well? Because I would, today, it wouldn't be nearly as much as when we've done it.
We've got to spoil on rates.
Right.
Yeah. And like Christine said, we need those numbers, you know, we, you know, I keep talking about, you know, how long it's gonna last. And I know we have this study coming that's gonna help a little bit, but, you know, the last thing we wanna do is solve a problem and tomorrow have a new one. I mean, that scares me to death. And the other thing that scares me to death is if we go out and we do a bunch of this stuff and 3 years down the road, we have all these problems again because of growth. So, you know, it's a good thing, but it's a bad thing. So, so that's what scares me, you know.
For me, I mean, I really appreciate that we've had all of this work thus far, and that I really appreciate that the staff's actively involved. Is just looking at, I mean, Carrie was around, but I mean, when this high school was built, that was one of the criticisms, was there wasn't a whole lot of staff engagement in it. So I think we're going about it the right way. But there are going to be some hard decisions to be made. If we look at it as well, over the next 5 years, we could maybe do all this, then I think we need to just decide, well, what are the highest priorities? For what I've seen tonight, I'll just share. I kind of like in general what you've got for the elementary. I'm struggling with the intermediate. I do think that we need to do some significant things there, and I like that we're trying to address traffic, but I don't know that that really addresses it. That just dumps everybody out at School Street and Matthews, and then that'll be a big mess, in my opinion. So I'd like to see a little more work done on the intermediate, some other ideas. I don't know who said it, but I'm hesitant to demolish a lot at this stage. We certainly need to know where our net is on classrooms for that building. Middle school, I mean, in general, yeah. I don't know that we'll ever be able to address the pods as we grow a section at a time. So Mike would be looking, well, what is most important? In the high school, I mean, I think it's probably the best position to continue to grow. And for all of this, I'm kind of want to wait and see what the enrollment numbers look like, to say, well, what's the first things that we do? Yeah, if we put together this is to me, this is why we commissioned this, was this is more long range. And after walking through the high school, we've absolutely got to be thinking long range, because when we built this thing, we thought we were long range. And then those of us with sensitive ears here, well, you didn't think far enough ahead and it's not big enough, right? Well, then let's do that on this next go round. Right.
But I think 13 years ago also, we did have what we needed, and then we did get a bond capacity at 15 million, and we just started cutting to get to 18. And then when we found out we could actually bond for more, then we came back with that second bond really quickly thereafter.
You remember what that cost?
This is a $30 million complex.
Is it?
But to Stacy's point, the first 24 was the main complex, including the auditorium, which we didn't know at the time we were going to be able to do. But everything that we saw out there that week was not part of it. And when we first opened the school, the high school football was over there at the intermediate, and that was a big concern. So yeah, we made a lot of progress, but we constantly need to be thinking about, is that big enough? And I like the questions that we've had, which is that really where it needs to be? You know, maybe that's where the bus barn needs to be for now, but I would agree in 10 years, it needs to be somewhere else. So master plan, good. I don't know that we're ready to start nitpicking, you know, details, but next thing we need to do as a board is say, well, what are our highest priorities?
In our previous master planning, we've done some individual work with architects, like as building principal. I know this is very like high level right now, but I would be ready. I'd be ready to tell you what I want, yeah. But I see that as kind of next step too, talking through, and yes, staff was involved at the very beginning, but staff doesn't know any of this, or does it know of anything other than very like, what is your ideal classroom space? So I just want to make sure we're aware of like, at what point do we want staff?
So what did you guys see 2 weeks ago?
What did you ask?
I assumed that you guys saw this 2 weeks ago.
Just, I think you meant like teacher staff. Is that?
No.
Okay, I thought that's staff was involved. No, we got to see this.
Okay.
Yes.
And to your point, Amy, to me, we need to continue to be at a pretty high level.
Yeah.
And when we decide that we're doing 1 and 3 or 2 and 4, this first go round, and then 2 and 3, the next go round, then it's a deeper dive, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the way it would play out.
I think I'm gonna talk for a little bit, and if you'll hang with me a little bit. I sat down this afternoon and I took out my piece of paper and I said, if I were you guys, and knowing what I did, what would I come, what would my suggestions be? And the first thing I feel, because quite frankly, we have concern for all, you know, we have all these guys, plus we have, you know, the main office and all that. And so I sat down and said, what I do with elementary building is I make pre-K, early K, and I move the offices over there. And why I say that is because, and I've talked to Andrew about this, is we have money and we have bonding capacity, but we don't have the kind of money where we can go tear our building down and remodel it. I think we have to work within sometimes the 4 walls that we have, okay? And so I would do that, and I'm not sure I would do the gym there because I kind of fall into his category. And then I would go the other intermediate building, I go bridge 1, 2, 3. You know, and I put those there and yes, you need that, you know. And I'm just, you know, I was sitting there this afternoon just doing this, and I said, well, what does it look like? And then you know, in the middle school, you have 4 class students, you know. And I look at this and I say, you know, you know, it would work. You wouldn't have to redo the course room, you wouldn't have to do the band room. All those work, you probably, the locker rooms would probably be fine having that big group. And then I built the middle school and I made that something okay. And we have the space, we have it all right out there. And it might be cheaper than trying to renovate it, and there's a reason to say that. And then, and the only reason I don't group the 9th grade in there is because Chris Billington told me, he said when you add the 9th grade to the 7th, 8th, it's a component that really doesn't work well. And I'm going to trust him with that. And so that's the reason I didn't do that. And then the high school was at 12, and we have to make some additions there. But what I did, I sat down and thought, if I was a designer, what would I do? And going through all this, I don't know a lot of time doing this. You know, because quite frankly, like I was telling you, we have policy, we spend money, and we hire to see. That's the 3 things we have to do. And this is right in our plate. And so we got to make sure we make really good decisions on what we do. Now, are you guys way different I am? Yeah. Are you wrong? I mean, I think we just have to think about things that make sense. You know, and I'm not so sure if we can't build a new building in that $48 million. You know, I don't know. But you know, you have to do something. So that's what I came up with today. And so I was a little shocked to see all this, and there I wasn't very aligned with anybody, but you know, it's anyway, that's my 2 cents.
I think that's good, Jeff, to be thinking about that. I would say we kind of went through the grade redistribution discussion a couple times ago.
Yeah.
So that's probably why you didn't see this.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Well, but Jeff,
Buy onto this, I know what you're saying.
we've had, the reason I'm bringing it up is because we had the conversation. I
Right.
thought it was board.
I know, but it doesn't mean that I'm still gonna buy it.
But I thought you were.
No, I'm not. But I'm not vote, if everybody else does it, I want to be part of it.
But that's probably why you've seen what you've seen, is because we've had those sessions.
Right.
And we, so to your point, we've had those conversations, and if we need to reopen grade redistribution, we should. But we've had those conversations. and it
Right.
Kind of came back to, well, we think these 4 buildings with that grade distribution is what's right. So that's why you've seen what you've seen tonight.
Right, and I understand that, I don't necessarily. Yeah, and that's okay, I mean, I'm not always gonna be, my way's not always right, and obviously it has to know a lot, you know, but, I think it's food for thought when we start looking at the amount of money we're spending. And what worries me most ever is, like you said, what worries me is the long-term plan. And we'll know better when we get the study that we ordered, you know, that will show us this. I'm scared to death to spend $35 million and not fix our problems. That's really what I'm scared of. So, you know, today when I did this, it's I thought, you know, going back, and I know we've had conversations and but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. That's what worries me. I don't want to spend this money and not fix our problems.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Well, and I'd also just like to add that it's one of the things that every time, including tonight, that we work together with our architects, is that the feedback that I see everybody give, maybe not all the pieces, but pieces that they take and figure out how to work that into the next meeting that we have. And I've been really, really impressed with that. I mean, you think about the conversations that we've had a long time ago, I forgot when we started actually, of where we were, you know, okay, we're gonna, you know, and even I don't know if they're rumors or things that were said way back in the last master planning of, oh, we're gonna start with a whole new, this kind of building or that kind of building. And what I appreciate is that while we've heard those things, we've all kind of worked together to give that feedback to our architects, and they've come to us with a plan. We understand expensive, we get that part, but it gives us, you know, in this particular one in front of us might not be the perfect plan, but it gives us a place to say, okay, now what are our priorities from here, so that we can plan for our near future and more of the long-term future. And that's what those numbers we're talking about, Jeff, and all of us that will come to us, that will help us to figure out. And so Melissa's aware, we brought in another outside company, Melissa, to help us look at our enrollment numbers, because our current system that we were utilizing company, we didn't necessarily agree with their numbers. And we think that there'll be a lot more growth than what they were showing. So we have a company out of Kansas City that works with a lot of school districts on looking at those numbers again, to just say, where are we? So utilizing that with this information and then setting priorities, I think will probably be, I don't jump ahead, but could be potentially our next steps as we look at moving forward. But I just appreciate the honest conversations that I've had in every setting I've had as we've gone through this, and how our architects have taken that information and morphed it into a plan, because I'm not sure some meetings when we left how that was going to look. And so I appreciate that, and that you're open to the suggestions that have come forward and looking at all those pieces. So I'm grateful to everyone for that.
Give my thoughts real brief here. Jeff took an hour and a half on his, so. You know, when we first started talking, we all, as a board, our immediate needs were the elementary and the intermediate. I think with all that was from across the board, so I do like the fact that the majority of the dollars as it sits now is spent in those two buildings. I believe that's where the biggest need is. Again, the intermediate, I'm kind of with, I don't know, I think the intermediate does get some sort of revamp. Is that the one that I envisioned? I don't know, I don't know what I envisioned, but I do think it needs some sort of big restructure. But I haven't given my full thoughts on that. Where I am with Mike on middle school, I do think middle school needs a new gym of some sorts. I've been in that gym during the day, cheese and nuts, you know, with all the kids. The 7th grade basketball's got 45 kids going out for girls basketball. Somehow, some way, I do think a gym of some sorts, if we're gonna add one, in my mind, sorry, Amy, it would be more middle school than it would intermediate, but that's just my opinion. With also high school, I also think we additional gym as well, I always kind of thought that. But again, overall, like where we're looking from a color standpoint, I think elementary and intermediate need the most dollars to put towards them. I am still on board on moving the current track football field. I think we can move that over to middle school. I just don't know the intermediate layout where I am on that. I don't like the fact there's a playground across the street. I know that very cheap. I'm not a fan of that at all. So, again, that's just my thoughts. Josh, what do you got? Melissa, you're going last. I'm sure you can be.
Yeah, elementary school seems right on track. Intermediate, I was, so you're gonna have to blame these guys. I really liked the plan until I started hearing them talk about it. I was like, no, maybe it does need some tweaking. I appreciated some, you know, some of the unique solutions that, you know, you're trying there. Because I think that's a building that's gonna generate some type of a unique solution, so. I like the, yeah, I had my mind changed after the meeting where, yeah, something needs to be different. Especially with that playground. I'm with Jeff, I think we're just totally redoing the bus barn. On some of that more available land is a good idea. Now, how we phase that all in. If you are gonna rework the intermediate plan, maybe that's something that could help us with that, you know. I always get nervous dropping my kids off at the intermediate, like, okay, there's, you know, the line that you're not supposed to step over as all the buses are coming in. I don't know if we can avoid that, but just, I like keeping big scary vehicles away from kids, and I like the idea of that being somewhere away. Yeah, I like the thought process that went into it, but I think yeah, we'll need some more work there. I was surprised with your comments just about the pods and the structuring of the middle school. And about kind of just how it isn't working as well as it should. I don't know that I have a solution or a thought that comes out of it. But I empathize with that. So that was just something new today that I heard. So I agree, gym needs to be over there. I'm not saying we won't need to add a gym at some point over at the intermediate again, but it seems like we're always short on athletic space. And a lot of that, I think, maybe in a bigger community, it wouldn't be the school district doing that. But it's just kind of the way we are in such a small community where the school district is kind of the big object here. Yeah, high school. I was surprised tonight at the athletics area and taking the tour there. That was, it sounds like we already tried to add stuff on and we've already outpaced it, and something needs to be done there. But yeah, seems like staff really understands their needs pretty well. So, given what we've said, follow their lead on that.
Melissa, welcome aboard.
Well, I mean, I'm still wrapping my head around all of this, but to me, Gilbert, I mean, all of our buildings and the district as a whole is just, it's an excellent district, right? And I feel like our teachers have been really innovative in using their spaces well. And I walk into this building and I'm just really amazed at how wonderful it is. And so I think that I come from a place where I'm like feeling really grateful for what we have, which gives me the ability to just tap the brakes a little bit and say, okay, what do we really need? And I maybe don't understand the growth that's happening because I know that that's coming, right? But so maybe we need to learn more about that before I feel like I know confidently where growth up there needs to happen. But I also feel like things are working right now, unless they're not. And so I think that we have space to do things slowly in a really wise way. But I also don't know everything. So like, I could be totally off base. The elementary school is pretty much the same as it was when I was there, like 30 years ago. So that's kind of my, you know, I see that they're making do and they're using their spaces well, but I think that there's a lot of opportunity there that we're missing out on. I don't know. And I was serious about the walkway thing. I know it's like, well, let's just add that in for another $30 million, but I mean, I think what would be great for our district as a whole is to be able to, our schools are so close. So something to make them more walkable and safe for our kids, because that, I'm really terrified about a child being run over by a car or a bus. And so for me, that's like, if I could have kids safely walking from school to practice and not have to worry about that, that would do this mom's heart a lot of good. So.
CMBA, so you got it clear as mud now, right? Everybody on the same page. Anything else?
Can I just add one?
Oh, yeah, go ahead, please.
I was just gonna say, you know, Melissa, you touched on it, so thank you for saying that, is that it's a great problem to have in some of the things we're talking about. We're talking about growth. That's a great problem to have. We have so many kids in our programs. That's a great problem to have. I mean, the things that we're talking about, while they are challenges that we're gonna have to figure out, they're also really celebrations. So it just speaks to the district, the teachers, the coaches, the parents, the whole community that supports this incredible school district. And that's why we're in the position that we're in. So while it's going to be a challenge, it's also just a really great place for us to be. So I just want to thank everyone for their hard work and bringing that forward for all of us. So.
Just a random question. Let's take this back a year. Roughly how much less would the cost be 1 year ago as opposed to today? Just percentage.
A year ago it was still expensive.
Yeah,
We went back 2 years.
you'd have to go 2 or 3 now to get
Okay.
that.
Are you gonna come down some?
It's equalized, but it's not coming down.
Your wood frame building is, yeah, not the steel side. Yeah,
Well, we built it up 3 years ago.
I can't.
We started this.
We've had- so here's the thing, some of it are, the bids have come in lower. It's actually become kind of a pattern, which is great, but I personally think it's because our estimates are continuing to go up when things have leveled out, so they're not coming down, they're just leveled out, and I don't think that they will come down unless there's a reset. Just historically hasn't happened.
So one of the descriptions we got, and walking around the trade show at the IASB last week, and fill in blanks here, but you know, costs initially were all supply chain driven, right? Just crazy. Well, what we heard was that's kind of normalizing, but now the labor component is built in, and that's going to be a lot. I mean, that's here to stay. So I don't know that we're going to see it. We should wait it out for lower costs, but I don't know that it, you know, who knows if it'll get more expensive as we go down the road. But I mean, what's your experience? As you said that some of the bids have come in lower, but that's because your estimates are
I think
higher.
we overplayed the estimates and our estimators did. That's my opinion. When we worked with CMs, they hadn't. I think they still come in where the CM says because they're talking to the subs.
Right.
So
$300 a square foot or what?
or more.
Or
Higher.
Anything else?
So next step, I mean, I think this is good. I think it'd be nice if you could consolidate some of the feedback tonight, not necessarily change, but capture it. And I would suggest that we sort of keep this, and it's a little bit of our work, I think, to get the enrollment projections and then help with, well, what are our priorities?
Yeah.
But that's my thoughts. I don't know that there's a ton more for you guys to do until we say, here's our highest priorities. But I mean, others, you want to see,
I'm not sure where we at on calendar as far as pressure. Are we okay
so,
there?
well, what we decided 2 months ago now, when we said we're not comfortable with enrollment.
Right.
We said we're gonna pump the brakes, so the bonding can happen basically, I think, 3 times a year. And initially, we were targeting to have this finalized now or next month, so that we put a bonding committee together and bond next spring. We pumped the brakes 2 meetings ago and said, let's not rush into that. We gotta make sure we're comfortable, like everybody said, with what we're doing. And one of the most things we're most uncomfortable with was where we're at with enrollment projections. So we get that in January, we come back and we start prioritizing. To me, we get a plan together in the spring and we bond in the fall. So we're about 6 months behind what we said.
Yeah.
But with our enrollment numbers, at least this year, it's not like we're bursting at the seams, sort of to Melissa's insight that, you know, we're okay right now. We don't want to stop, but so the time would be about 6 months later than what we initially set up this spring, Jeff. Is that? Yeah, what, do you remember when the bonding dates are in 2023?
I think it's March or 2023, so the March and then is it November? I thought it was November. Is it one?
It's
Yeah, that's what I was.
use March and September in 2023.
So instead of
And then
bond,
next year you would have November added in, but we would always say, don't hold
Don't,
the
yeah.
school bond during a general election.
so instead of March, we're looking at potentially September. And that would need to be time with the committee.
But, yeah, I don't know necessarily we want to.
Right.
Looking at phasing, I don't. It's not gonna be phasing parts of the building, it's gonna be. Which building do we do completely? And then which buildings do we, building do we do completely in the next phase? Which makes it, maybe it makes it a little easier to make that decision for phasing stuff in, but I was trying to play around and like, okay, can we a la carte this or, no, it's. At least that's the way it was, and it's.
We keep going back to the same. You know, one of our big pieces of places is the enrollments. So in my mind, once we get those numbers, we can start to project out by building capacities, and then we can start to phase in really what needs are going to be by building, and then we can start to put this together. But
The intermediate's the most missing link for me right now, that's the biggest unknown.
And financially, we are sitting really well, or we have talked about, we have cash that we could do some projects with national planning. And we have sales tax, and we only, when you're talking about athletic fields, then there's additional hoops we have to go through in order to use some of our funding. But those are just, but we do have some other options when besides launching to do some of the pieces as we decide on priorities.
I mentioned it before, I'll mention it again, a lot of this, we're talking about community space and athletics, is like, some sort of community center too, and that may be on school grounds, but not funded by the school. Maybe it's a, public-private kind of joint venture, I don't know. But a lot of those dollars, and I know a lot of these gyms are used by the community, yes, we are the community, but can it And we sum this off and kind of work together as a town, school, private sector all in one.
What talked with him quite a bit during the tour, you know, think about the Sports Iowa facility out west of town. Something like that, you know, saying, hey, is that something that works, you know, how important is it to be directly physically connected? And I mean, you're probably more insight on that, but is that something, you know, that's something where outside funding could come in. Or it'd be even.
I mean, we add all these gyms and everything else, we gotta add a lot of staff too. I mean, people are gonna be there in the buildings, people are cleaning the buildings, I mean, there's a lot of staff being added to this as well, we gotta think about. It's not just the facility, there's the other stuff too, you gotta keep up with all, so. Nice to get that out of the way. Be thinking out loud here. Anything else? CMD, thank you guys very, very much. You guys, I appreciate it. You guys are awesome.
This one really brought it together.
Yeah. Next item for discussion, board retreat. Christine, you want to get on a little bit?
Yes, we were discussing the possibility of having a board retreat as a great way to just welcome Melissa and bring her on board, as well as, I'm not sure we had her when Josh came on board, so you know, I know he's no longer a newbie, but but it would be a good opportunity for all of us to get together. I can share some of the priorities of the district as we're moving forward, what that looks like, give us an opportunity to share those pieces and have the conversation as a board and work together in a retreat format. So that is a thought and a recommendation.
Time frame, are you thinking maybe before the end of the year or after the first part of the year?
After the first part of the year is what I was thinking.
That's what I was thinking too.
Good.
What's everybody's thoughts on some sort of board retreat? Just kind of get everybody up to speed. We got some big decisions ahead of us. I think it'd be a good idea just to have something like this all together.
We had discussed maybe offsite, maybe, you know, there's some great places around town that we could utilize, maybe even, I know it's hard for all of us to get here after work and things like that, maybe even a Saturday morning, and then we could go to lunch together, make it a half day or something like that, where we're all available. Might be just a different take on it so that we can get together.
You're out a lot, aren't you? After the first of the year?
This is January, February, March.
Okay, well, yeah, that helps. So the rest of the other four of us.
We can do that.
Yeah.
I'll be back.
What, I guess, maybe,
So we'll have, yeah, maybe Gail and I'll work together and maybe put together some or doodle, as we like to do. See if we can agree on a date and a time and start there. How about that?
real quick, preferably evenings or weekend mornings, or what, I guess as a group here, so we start narrowing this down a little bit, what would we prefer?
I keep my Monday evenings pretty open in general. I'm available Mondays during the day.
Weekends, no, I'm just throwing out weekends, yay.
If I know enough ahead of time, I can make it work.
I can make like anything work, but we have, I mean, I have 3 basketball games every Saturday now, so it's March.
Are you like 5 AM? I can do anything. That's pretty much time. So. But no, a lot of people are weird. It's just.
Yeah.
I thought that's what he said. I'm like,
Tyler, what's your thoughts on time frames?
Well, I think we can do a retreat. It'd be nice to do it when we're not all kind of looking at our watches. So I kind of like the idea of the Saturday morning. But I don't know, kids doing the sports anymore.
I have a really great husband. So.
Yeah, I do. I like that.
It'd be kind of nice just to be,
Change it up.
yeah, and not have something that we're rushing to and.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't mind a Saturday morning.
Knowing ahead of time is the biggest.
okay.
That's
There we go. All right, so you can take that, I'm okay with weekends.
All right, we'll get started now.
Okay. Annual meeting, December 12th, so we will be back in the intermediate library, is that correct?
That is correct.
On December 12th for a regular meeting, and then the next meeting after that is January 16th. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Further discussion, all in favor to adjourn the meeting?
I have a question.
Yes.
Then, so the next meeting, there's like a band concert. I don't know if it's all intermediate or just fifth grade. If I'm the only one affected, I can just miss it, but it's the Gilbert.
Intermediate, same time,
It's at 6:30 to 7:30.
okay.
Right?
We can talk about that.
It's good for the sixth grade. I have a fifth grader, but I mean.
All those in favor of adjourning meeting?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, meeting adjourned.
Same